Adrian's little girl was throwing a tantrum again. She made Adrian publicly propose to break off our engagement at my birthday banquet in front of everyone. The little girl I raised couldn't accept you. I looked at the large diamond ring on my finger that Adrian's archenemy had put on me and nodded. Oh. I heard his group of fair-weather friends betting. Do you believe that after the banquet ends, Miss Celia will faint from crying? Then beg Adrian not to abandon her. Adrian was even more mysteriously confident, saying, she loves me to death. After the banquet ended, I did cry. But it was because of Adrian's other archenemy. My 25th birthday banquet was held at the Mou family's mountainside villa. 3,000 champagne roses wound from the Roman columns to the edge of the fountain pool, and the crystal chandeliers refracted brilliant light. I stood beside the champagne tower, my fingertips lightly tapping the glass wall, my gaze sweeping over the full hall of guests, business elites, heirs from prominent families, and even a few familiar faces from the entertainment industry. Miss Celia, your earring is loose. The makeup artist reminded me softly. I slightly turned my head, allowing her to adjust the diamond pendant on my earlobe. The mirror reflected my look for the day, a Valentino haute couture red dress, black hair slightly curled and cascading down, red lips like blood, beautiful in a sharp and flamboyant way. Has young Master Adrian not arrived yet? The makeup artist asked cautiously. I chuckled lightly, he'd better never come. As soon as the words fell, there was a commotion at the entrance. Adrian finally arrived late, with a girl in a white dress hanging on his arm. Today, he wore a burgundy suit, with his tie loosely hanging, exuding the demeanor of a carefree young master. The girl beside him, Vivian, had long straight black hair, makeup so light it was almost transparent, timidly hiding behind him, looking just like a startled little white rabbit. All eyes in the room instantly focused on them. Tisk, is Adrian bringing his new flame? The heiress of the Jo group, Joanne, leaned close to my ear, her tone playful. I sipped my champagne, my expression unchanged, who knows? Adrian held Vivian's waist and strode towards me, his face wearing that smug expression of I'm going to embarrass you. Celia, he said loudly, deliberately letting the whole room hear, let me introduce Vivian. Vivian lowered her head, her voice as faint as a mosquito. Hello, Miss Celia. I glanced at her indifferently and didn't respond. Adrian continued his performance. Vivian is too innocent and can't handle your spoiled mistemper, so we. He paused, raising his volume. The engagement is cancelled. The room instantly fell silent. The band even stopped playing, and everyone's gaze focused on me, waiting to see Miss Celia's loss of composure. I shook my champagne glass, the corners of my lips slightly raised. Perfect, saves me the trouble of saying it. I turned and continued chatting and laughing with Joanne, as if I had just heard an irrelevant piece of nonsense. Adrian was stunned. He clearly hadn't expected this reaction from me, no hysterics, no tears, not even a furrowed brow. Vivian also lifted her head, a flash of astonishment in her eyes. Celia. Adrian raised his voice, did you hear clearly? I said the engagement is cancelled. I leisurely sipped my wine and then looked him straight in the eye. I heard clearly. Anything else? His face turned red, clearly angered by my attitude. Don't pretend to be so calm. I know you're hurting inside. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Adrian, aren't you overestimating yourself? You. Adrian. Vivian tugged at his sleeve, her eyes red. Don't be like this, Miss Celia must be very sad. I raised an eyebrow. Miss Vivian, hold back the tears, your makeup is about to run. Her face stiffened. At that moment, the butler pushed in a 5-tier cake cart. Miss, it's time to cut the cake. I elegantly set down my wine glass, picked up the cake knife, completely ignoring Adrian and Vivian standing aside. The guests exchanged looks, but soon resumed their lively conversations. After all, no one would offend the Sue family for the sake of the Mou family. After cutting the cake, I turned to leave, but out of the corner of my eye, I caught a figure in the corner. Nathan leaned against a Roman column, in a sharply tailored black suit, holding an unlit cigarette between his fingers, looking at me with a half-smile. We locked eyes for a second. The corner of his lips curved slightly, a dangerous glint flashing in his eyes. After the banquet ended, I stood alone on the terrace to get some air. Good acting. A deep male voice sounded behind me, followed by a glass of whiskey handed to me. I took the glass without turning back. Does Adrian really think I'm forcing myself to stay calm? Nathan stood beside me, his suit jacket already removed, white shirt sleeves rolled up, revealing his toned forearms. His friends were betting just now, he said playfully, saying you'll cry and beg for reconciliation within 3 days. I scoffed, then they might lose everything. Nathan turned his head to look at me, his gaze deep. Are you really not sad at all? I turned to face him, my fingers stroking his tie and giving it a light tug. What do you think? He chuckled lowly, cupped the back of my head, and kissed me. The kiss carried the rich aroma of whiskey and a faint tobacco flavor, dominant yet lingering. When we parted, his thumb wiped the corner of my lips. Happy birthday, Miss Celia. I smiled. Where's the gift? He took out a velvet box from his pocket, opened it, revealing an antique letter opener with a handle inlaid with rubies. I raised an eyebrow. The one from the auction 3 months ago? I saw you wanted it back then, he said lazily, so I bought it. I took the letter opener, my fingertips lightly stroking the sharp blade. Is Nathan wanting me to personally slay the scumbag? He chuckled lowly. No, it's for you to open gifts with. After a pause, he added, for example, opening me. I looked up at him. That depends on whether Nathan's gift is worth me opening it personally. He directly pressed me against the railing and kissed me again. On the 3rd day after the banquet ended, Vivian's true love declaration had exploded on social media. She posted a photo with Adrian, captioned, "True love is innocent, thank fate for letting me meet you." The comments below were filled with "so sweet and brave in pursuing love." I lay on the terrace of my private villa, leisurely scrolling through my phone, my fingertip lightly swiping the screen to like that post. Then, in the next second, my phone was snatched away. You're quite leisurely. Nathan stood behind me, his suit jacket casually draped over his shoulder, shirt collar slightly open, revealing a fresh scratch on his collarbone. I lazily raised my eyes. What, is Nathan jealous? He leaned down, one hand supporting on the armrest of my lounge chair, the other pinching my chin, his thumb rubbing my lips. If I were jealous, could you still be lying here playing with your phone? I chuckled lightly, my fingertips pulling his tie downward. Then what does Nathan want me to do? He was about to lower his head to kiss me when my phone suddenly vibrated. It was Adrian's call. Nathan glanced at the screen, sneered, and directly pressed speakerphone. Celia. Adrian's voice carried a condescending tone of charity. You liked Vivian's post, are you regretting it? I almost laughed out loud. Nathan pinched my waist, signaling me to play along. I adjusted my tone, deliberately sounding a bit down. You're overthinking. Adrian immediately became smug. Stop pretending, I know you're hurting. Actually, Vivian is very magnanimous. If you apologize, she won't mind. I rolled my eyes, but my tone remained soft and weak. Adrian, is there really no chance for us anymore? On the other end of the phone, Adrian's voice instantly became joyful. Celia, you're finally willing to back down? Wouldn't it have been better if you did this earlier? But now. He deliberately paused. You have to apologize to Vivian first. After all, your attitude that day was too bad. I silently sneered, my fingertips drawing circles on Nathan's chest, but my tone was aggrieved. Okay, I'll think about it. After hanging up, Nathan directly lifted me from the lounge chair, pressing me against the floor-to-ceiling window, his voice dangerous. If you keep acting, I'm afraid I'll just kill him. I wrapped my arms around his neck, laughing freely. Don't, killing him directly wouldn't be fun. The next day, Vivian updated a video on her social platform. She wore a pure white dress, her eyes red, softly and weakly saying to the camera, I hope everyone doesn't attack Miss Celia, she's just too in love with Adrian. Below the video, the comments were filled with Vivian is so kind and that spoiled Miss Celia deserves to be dumped. I sat in the car, watching the video, unable to hold back a scoff. In the driver's seat, Nathan had one hand on the steering wheel, the other pinching the back of my neck. What, want to deal with her? I tilted my head and smiled. No rush, let her bounce around for a few more days. That evening, at a high-end club, I ran into Adrian and Vivian. As soon as Vivian saw me, she immediately shrank into Adrian's arms, whispering, "Adrian, let's go, Miss Celia probably doesn't want to see me." Adrian held her tightly, giving me a cold look. "Celia, are you following us?" I shook my wine glass and chuckled lightly. "This club is owned by my friend, I came to drink." "Any problem?" Adrian frowned, clearly not believing it. Vivian tugged at his sleeve, her voice soft and sweet. "Adrian, don't be like this. Miss Celia must be very sad, that's why she's here." I set down my wine glass, slowly walked up to her, slightly leaned down, and said in a voice only she could hear, "Vivian, with your acting skills, it's a pity you don't act in movies." Her face stiffened. I straightened up, smiled at Adrian. "Don't worry, I won't pester you." With that, I turned and left. 10 minutes later, in the club's VIP room, Nathan pressed me onto the sofa, his fingers pinching my chin, his eyes deep. "Had enough fun?" I smiled provocatively. "What, is Nathan jealous again?" He chuckled lowly, directly kissing me, his voice muffled against my lips. "Yes, so tonight you're responsible for putting out the fire." The next day, Vivian updated her social platform again. This time it was a photo of her leaning on Adrian's shoulder, captioned, "Some people are destined to be passers-by." When I scrolled to this post, I was lying in Nathan's arms. He glanced at the screen and sneered, "Want to go public now?" I shook my head, smiling lazily. "What's the rush? Let them be smug for a few more days." Nathan pinched my chin, his voice hoarse. "Celia, you really are." I kissed him, blocking the rest of his words. Vivian's drama escalated. She anonymously posted in the socialite group, "I heard Celia is still pestering Adrian privately, so pitiful, can't let go after being dumped." The accompanying image was a blurry back view of me standing by the window of a high-end restaurant, head down looking at my phone, the light and shadow making my profile look somewhat desolate. The group immediately exploded. "Is it real? Isn't Celia always so arrogant? LOL, pretending to be so calm, turns out it was all an act. Vivian, be careful, this kind of spoiled miss is best at stabbing in the back." Vivian replied with a aggrieved emoji, "Everyone, don't say that, Miss Celia is just too in love with Adrian." I scrolled through the group messages, my fingertip lightly tapping the screen, the corners of my lips slightly curved. This photo was one I deliberately took the day before yesterday at a restaurant near Adrian's company. My phone vibrated, Nathan's message popped up. I replied with a cat tilting its head emoji. He directly called, his voice deep and magnetically dangerous. "Celia, if you keep acting affectionate, don't think about getting out of bed tonight." I chuckled lightly. Is Nathan threatening me? It's a notification. On the other end, there was the light sound of a lighter igniting. I could almost imagine him leaning on a leather sofa, shirt collar slightly open. "See you tonight." I deliberately softened my voice. "Remember to bring that bottle of 1985 Lafite." He chuckled lowly and hung up. That evening, at the charity gala, I wore an ink green velvet gown, the hollow design at the waist accentuating my skin like snow, the diamond pendants on my earlobes swaying lightly with my steps, unconsciously drawing all eyes in the room. Vivian and Adrian were there too. She wore a white gauze dress today, black long straight hair over her shoulders, makeup nearly transparent, looking like a delicate white flower swaying in the wind. Adrian held her waist, a smug smile on his face, as if showing off to the whole room. "See, no matter how beautiful Celia is, she's still lost to my Vivian? Miss Celia." Vivian took the initiative to come over, holding champagne, her eyes timid. What a coincidence. I shook my wine glass and didn't respond. She bit her lip, her eyes reddening again. Those messages in the group weren't sent by me, please don't misunderstand." "Is that so?" I chuckled lightly, then after posting anonymously, "You replied with your main account, don't say that about Miss Celia, good acting." Her face stiffened. At that moment, a waiter passed by with a tray, and Vivian accidentally bumped into it, splash. The entire glass of red wine spilled on my skirt hem, the dark red stain instantly spreading. Ah. Sorry. Vivian frantically pulled out tissues, her voice tearful. I didn't mean it, Miss Celia, All eyes gathered over. Adrian strode over, frowning and glaring at me. Celia, Vivian has apologized, don't make a face. I looked down at the skirt hem and suddenly smiled. I raised my hand, gently stroking Vivian's cheek, whispering in her ear, the dress is yours, anyway. After a pause, my voice light as a feather, it's suitable for burial. Her pupils contracted sharply. I elegantly turned and left the scene directly. Half an hour later, in the private garage. As soon as the door of the black Maybach closed, Nathan pressed me onto the seat. His fingertips rubbed the wine stain on my skirt hem, his eyes dark. She spilled it? I smiled lazily. What, is Nathan going to avenge me? More than that. He unbuttoned his suit with one hand, leaned down to bite my collarbone. Tonight, pay back with interest. The car body slightly shook, the windows gradually fogging up. The next morning, Vivian updated her social platform. Some people look glamorous on the surface but are petty about even a dress behind the scenes. The accompanying image was a posed photo of her wearing my ink green gown, but with a small white flower photoshopped on the hem, with text beside, kindness can't be faked. The comments were filled with Vivian is so pure and that spoiled Miss Celia can't compare. He glanced at the screen and sneered, want to kill her now? I shook my head, my fingertips drawing circles on his chest. What's the rush? Let her bounce around for a few more days. After a pause, I added, wait for Adrian's birthday banquet. Nathan flipped over and pressed me down. Celia, you really are. I kissed him, blocking the rest of his words. Vivian had become increasingly restless lately. She hired a private detective to follow me, trying to dig up my dirt to make Adrian completely despise me. Unfortunately, the person she sent was too unskilled, only capturing a few blurry back views, photos of me and Nathan kissing in the garage, with dim lighting, vaguely showing a tall man. But this was enough for her to exploit. At the Sue family villa, late at night. Vivian wore a pure white nightgown, barefoot on the soft carpet, clutching those blurry photos, her eyes red as if she had conjunctivitis, looking like she had suffered a great injustice. Adrian. Her voice choked, gently tugging at Adrian's sleeve. I didn't want to tell you, but, how could Miss Celia do this? Adrian was leaning on the sofa drinking, frowning upon hearing, what's wrong? Vivian bit her lip, tears about to fall, trembling as she handed over the photos. I was worried Miss Celia might do something rash because of the broken engagement, so I had someone keep an eye on her, but the result. In the photos, in the dim garage, I was pressed against the car door by a man in a deep kiss, my skirt disheveled, the man's hand gripping my waist, dominant and possessive. Adrian's face instantly darkened. Vivian took the opportunity to embellish, how could Miss Celia do this? It's only been a few days since the engagement was broken, and she's with another man. She sobbed, does she not care about you at all? Adrian slammed his wine glass on the table, wine splashing everywhere. Bitch. He gritted his teeth, pretending to be so noble, turns out she was cheating on me long ago. Vivian threw herself into his arms, her voice soft and pained, Adrian, don't be angry. Miss Celia might have just been confused for a moment. Adrian held her tightly, his tone cold, Vivian, don't worry, I won't let her get away with it. At the same time, in Nathan's private villa. I leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window, swirling a glass of red wine, listening to the real-time recording through my earphones, Vivian and Adrian's conversation coming through clearly. Nathan wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder, his voice hoarse, she's good at making up stories. I chuckled lightly, Adrian actually believed it. He's stupid. Nathan's hand slid down my waistline, his voice dangerous, but, she dares to slander you. I turned, my fingertip pressing against his lips, what's the rush? Let her act a bit longer. He directly pressed me against the glass, his voice husky, Celia, you're having quite the fun? I smiled provocatively, if you come to me, I'll be even happier. He lowered his head to bite my earlobe. Then tonight, let's be happy together. The next day, Adrian indeed took action. He anonymously posted in the socialite group, Celia pretends to be noble on the surface, but plays around quite a bit privately. Accompanied by that blurry garage photo. The group exploded instantly. Holy shit. Is this Celia? Only a few days after the broken engagement and she's hooking up with someone else? TSK, looks like Adrian was right to dump her. Vivian appeared timely, sending an aggrieved emoji. Everyone, don't be like this. Miss Celia might have just been impulsive. I scrolled through the group messages, the corners of my lips curving. The fish has taken the bait. My phone vibrated, Nathan's message popped up, I'm angry. I replied, wait a bit more. He directly called, his voice deep and dangerous, Celia, my patience is limited. I chuckled lightly, Nathan, what's the rush? The good show is just starting. On the other end, silence for 2 seconds, then he suddenly laughed, his voice husky, tonight, I want to collect interest. That evening, Adrian's birthday banquet. Vivian wore a pure white gown, makeup exquisite, holding Adrian's arm, smiling gently and smugly. And I arrived late. In a red dress, red lips like blood, the sound of high heels on the marble floor crisp and sharp. The room instantly quieted. Adrian gave me a cold look, Celia, you dare to come? I shook my wine glass and chuckled lightly, why wouldn't I? Vivian timidly spoke, Miss Celia, those photos. I raised an eyebrow, what photos? Adrian sneered, what are you pretending for? The photos of you messing around with a wild man in the garage, the whole city knows. I leisurely sipped my wine and suddenly smiled, Adrian, are you sure that's me? He was stunned. I took out my phone and played a video. In the scene, Vivian was transacting with the private detective, her voice clear, no matter what method, you must capture Celia's dirt. Next was the detective's voice, Miss Vivian, these photos are too blurry, can't see the face at all. Vivian sneered, if you can't see clearly, Photoshop it. I want Adrian to completely despise her. The room erupted in uproar. Vivian's face turned pale, this is fake. Celia forged it. I chuckled lightly and played another recording. Vivian's coquettish voice, Adrian, Celia must have been with others long ago, she's not worthy of you at all. Adrian suddenly turned his head, looking at Vivian in disbelief. She panicked, tears instantly falling, Adrian, let me explain. I elegantly set down my wine glass, my red lips curving, Miss Vivian, good acting, but unfortunately. After a pause, I chuckled lightly, too stupid. With that, I turned and left the scene. Half an hour later, in the garage. As soon as the black Maybach door closed, Nathan pressed me onto the seat. Had enough fun? Is Nathan satisfied? He lowered his head to bite my lip, not satisfied. So. The voice drowned in the scorching kiss. After Vivian's scandal was exposed, Adrian quieted down for a few days. But clearly, his brain hadn't cleared up because of it. 3 days later, at Mu Group headquarters. I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office when the assistant knocked and entered, with a subtle expression, Celia, young Master Adrian is downstairs, saying, he has important matters to discuss with you. I didn't lift my head, tell him to get lost. The assistant hesitated, he says if you don't see him, he'll wait forever. I sneered, closing the file, fine, let's see what stupid things he can say. In the first floor reception room. Adrian sat on the sofa in a suit, standing up immediately upon seeing me enter, with a charitable smile on his face, Celia, you're finally willing to see me. I leaned against the door, arms crossed, speak quickly if you have something to say. He frowned, seeming dissatisfied with my attitude, but maintained his composure, I know you're still angry, but some things, we must clarify. I raised an eyebrow, oh? He took a deep breath, as if making a big decision, about Vivian. I can understand your feelings. I almost laughed out loud, understand what? You're jealous of her. His tone was certain. You deliberately exposed those recordings because you can't let go of me. I looked at him quietly, suddenly feeling it was utterly absurd. Seeing I didn't speak, Adrian thought he had hit the mark, his tone more confident. Actually, I can give you a chance. What chance? He stepped forward, his gaze burning. If you can accept Vivian, I can consider continuing with you. I blinked, thinking I misheard. What? Of course, the premise is you must apologize to Vivian. He added, with a magnanimous look, after all, you embarrassed her. I stared at him for 3 seconds, finally unable to hold back laughter. Adrian frowned. What are you laughing at? I wiped the tears from laughing at the corners of my eyes, shaking my head. Adrian, sometimes I really wonder. After a pause, my red lips curved. Is your confidence hereditary? His face instantly darkened. Celia. Don't be ungrateful. I leisurely walked to the sofa and sat down, crossing my legs, fingertips lightly tapping the armrest. Let me sort out your logic. You brought your mistress to my birthday banquet to break off the engagement, she hired someone to secretly photograph me and spread rumors, and now you want me to accept her and apologize? Adrian said righteously. Vivian was just confused for a moment. She loves me too much, that's why she did those things. And you, he looked at me with burning eyes, you did all this just to get my attention, right? Celia, admit it, you still love me. I looked at him quietly, suddenly finding it incredibly funny. How did I ever have an engagement with such an idiot? Adrian. I stood up, looking down at him. Do you know why I haven't touched you all this time? He was stunned. I chuckled lightly, because watching you act stupid is more entertaining than a circus. With that, I turned towards the door. Adrian suddenly grabbed my wrist. Celia. Stop pretending. I know you. Before he finished, the reception room door was suddenly pushed open. Nathan stood at the door in a black suit, his gaze falling on Adrian holding my hand, his eyes instantly cold. Adrian subconsciously let go. Nathan? Why are you here? Nathan didn't even glance at him, walking straight to my side, his voice low. The meeting is about to start. I naturally linked my arm with his. Let's go. Adrian's eyes widened. You too. Nathan then glanced at him, his tone indifferent. Does young Master Adrian have something? And no, nothing. Adrian stammered. I just came to talk some private matters with Celia. Nathan curved his lips, the smile not reaching his eyes. Finished talking? Finished. I chuckled lightly, looking up at Adrian. Right, what did young Master Adrian say earlier? To accept Vivian? Nathan raised an eyebrow. Oh? I tilted my head, smiling innocently. I said, after a pause, emphasizing each word, are you worthy? Adrian's face instantly turned ashen. Nathan chuckled lowly, wrapping his arm around my waist as we left. Until the elevator door closed, I could still hear Adrian smashing things in the reception room. In the elevator. Nathan had one hand in his pocket, the other pinching the back of my neck. Had fun? I leaned on his shoulder, laughing with light shoulder tremors. Okay, just a bit taxing on intelligence. He suddenly pressed me against the elevator mirror. Celia, I've endured for a long time. So? He lowered his head, his breath hot. What do you think, baby? The elevator went straight to the underground garage. The black Maybach's windows soon fogged up. Vivian went completely crazy. Ever since Adrian got a rebuff from me, she started escalating her antics. At a high-end beauty salon. I was lying on the massage bed in the VIP room with my eyes closed, resting, when the door was suddenly pushed open. Miss Celia. Vivian stood at the door in a pure white suit, makeup exquisite, lips pink, looking like a harmless little white flower. I didn't open my eyes. Get out. Not only did she not leave, but she came in, her voice gentle. Miss Celia, let's talk. I then lazily raised my eyes to look at her. Talk about what? How you hired someone to secretly photograph me, or how you pretend to be pitiful in front of Adrian? Vivian's face slightly changed, but she quickly resumed her pitiful look. Miss Celia, you misunderstood. Just what? I sat up, casually adjusting the collar of my robe. Just love Adrian too much? She bit her lip, her eyes instantly red. I know you don't like me, but Adrian and I truly love each other. I scoffed. True love? Vivian suddenly stepped closer, lowering her voice. Celia, don't think you're safe just because you've latched onto Nathan. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? I know about your relationship. She smiled smugly. Tell me, if this gets exposed, what will the Chi family think? I looked at her quietly, suddenly finding it amusing. Are you threatening me? I just want to coexist peacefully with you. She blinked. As long as you leave Adrian's life, I promise to keep my mouth shut. I stood up, looking down at her. Vivian, do you know what your biggest problem is? She was stunned. Too stupid. I chuckled lightly. Who do you think Nathan is? Are you worthy to threaten him? Vivian's face instantly turned pale. I picked up my phone and played a recording. No matter what method, you must capture Celia's dirt. Vivian's own voice came out clearly. She suddenly widened her eyes. You. Surprised? I smiled. The VIP room at the beauty salon. I have it booked year-round. Every corner here has surveillance and recording. Vivian staggered back, finally panicking. Celia. You, don't mess around. I leisurely put away my phone. Don't worry, I won't expose it now. After a pause, smiling sinisterly, I'll wait until Adrian's birthday banquet and play it publicly. Vivian completely collapsed, screaming and lunging at me. You bitch. I sidestepped, and she fell directly to the ground, her carefully styled hair disheveled, makeup ruined, looking like a madwoman. Miss Vivian, I leaned down, whispering in her ear, next time before threatening someone, remember to check if you have any handles in others' hands. With that, I turned and left, her hysterical cries echoing behind me. Half an hour later, at Nathan's private villa. I stepped barefoot on the soft carpet, swirling a glass of red wine, looking at the night view outside the floor-to-ceiling window. Behind me, Nathan had just showered, only a bath towel around his waist, water droplets sliding down the lines of his abs. Had enough fun? He walked behind me, his arms braced on the glass on either side of me, his voice low. I sipped the wine. Okay. He lowered his head, his wet hair brushing my neck. Vivian threatened you? I chuckled lightly, said she wants to expose our relationship. Nathan chuckled lowly, his breath hot. She dares. I turned, my fingertips tracing his chest. Nathan is so confident? He grabbed my hand, pressing it against the glass. Celia, do you know, the way you look now? After a pause, his voice husky, makes me really want to kill Adrian. I raised an eyebrow. Why? Because he once had you. Nathan dissatisfied, and I can only be your secret lover. I chuckled lightly, tilting my head to kiss him. I'll give you a title. 3 days later, Adrian's birthday banquet. Vivian attended in full dress, in a white gown, makeup exquisite, holding Adrian's arm, smiling gently and smugly. And I arrived late. In a red dress, red lips like blood, the sound of high heels on the marble floor crisp and sharp. The room instantly quieted. Adrian saw me, his eyes lighting up, immediately shaking off Vivian's hand and coming over. Celia. You're here. I shook my wine glass and chuckled lightly. Happy birthday. He was so excited his face turned red. I knew it. You still have me in your heart. Vivian stood not far away, her face ugly. I glanced at her and smiled. Adrian, I have a gift for you. He was surprised. What gift? I took out my phone and played a video. No matter what method, you must capture Celia's dirt. Vivian's voice clearly spread throughout the room. Adrian was stunned. This. The video continued. The photos are too blurry? Then Photoshop. I want Adrian to completely despise her. The room erupted in uproar. Vivian's face turned pale. No, it's not like that. Celia forged it. I played another recording. Adrian, Celia must have been with others long ago. She's not worthy of you. Adrian suddenly turned his head, looking at Vivian in disbelief. Vivian? Vivian panicked, tears instantly falling. Adrian, let me explain. I elegantly set down my wine glass. Miss Vivian, good acting, but unfortunately. After a pause, I chuckled lightly, too stupid. With that, I turned and left the scene. Half an hour later, in the garage. As soon as the black Maybach door closed, Nathan pressed me onto the seat. Feel better? I smiled provocatively. Is Nathan satisfied? He lowered his head to bite my lip, not satisfied. So. The voice drowned in the scorching kiss. After Adrian's birthday banquet, rumors spread in the circle. Some said Vivian was a scheming bitch, some said Adrian was blind, but the most absurd rumor was, Celia did all this to anger Adrian. And the source of this absurdity was Adrian himself. At a golf club, VIP lounge. Adrian crossed his legs, swirling whiskey, boasting to his fair-weather friends, just watch, within 3 days, Celia will definitely come find me. His friend Eric looked incredulous. Come on, she's so close to Nathan now, would she look at you? What do you know? Adrian sneered, what is Nathan? Celia getting close to him is just to make me jealous. Everyone exchanged looks. Think about it, Adrian said with increasing confidence. Why did she expose Vivian specifically at my birthday banquet? Why wear such a red dress? Why embarrass me in front of everyone? He slammed the table, because she can't let go of me. In the corner, Nathan, who had just finished playing, stopped, the corner of his lips curving in a cold smile. In the Moo Group CEO's office. I was reviewing documents when Assistant Alice knocked and entered, with a strange expression. Celia, young Master Adrian is here again. I didn't lift my head. Tell him to get lost. He says. Assistant Alice hesitated. He says if you don't see him, he'll shout downstairs. My pen tip paused, almost laughing. Shout what? Assistant Alice awkwardly handed over the phone. This is the video just taken by security downstairs. In the video, Adrian stood at the entrance of Moo Tower, holding a bouquet of red roses, shouting affectionately at the building, Celia. I know you still love me. Stop pretending. I rubbed my temples. Call the police. 5 minutes later, sirens echoed through the entire street. That evening, at a private party. I wore an ink green velvet gown, chatting with some business partners, when Adrian suddenly appeared, grabbing my wrist. Celia. Let's talk. The surroundings instantly quieted. I coldly withdrew my hand. Young Master Adrian, have some self-respect. Stop pretending. Adrian lowered his voice. I know you did all this to get my attention. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? Getting close to Nathan, exposing Vivian, even calling the police on me. He got more excited, all because you can't let go of me. I looked at him quietly for 3 seconds, suddenly smiling. Adrian, do you know what I admire most about you? He was stunned. This baseless confidence, I lightly shook my wine glass, is truly astonishing. Low laughter sounded around. Adrian's face flushed. Celia. Don't be stubborn. Dare you say you have no place for me in your heart? No. Then why do you always appear in front of me? Because, I smiled, watching you act stupid is one of my entertainment items. He suddenly clenched his fist. You. Young Master Adrian. A deep magnetic voice came from behind. Nathan appeared beside me at some point, suit impeccable, eyes cold. Adrian instantly cowered. Nathan. Nathan didn't even look at him, directly wrapping his arm around my waist. Let's go, the dance is starting. I naturally leaned into his arms, glancing at Adrian before leaving. Right, young Master Adrian. I suggest you see a psychiatrist. Delusion is a disease that needs treatment. In the center of the dance floor. Nathan held my waist, swaying slowly to the music. He makes such a fuss, aren't you angry? He asked lowly. I chuckled lightly. Why bother with an idiot? Nathan, I do. The music suddenly became intense. He spun me and pressed me against the floor-to-ceiling window, in an angle unseen by others. I hooked my arms around his neck and kissed him. 3 days later, at the charity auction. Adrian appeared with Vivian again. Vivian wore her usual white dress, makeup exquisite, but her eyes were much gloomier. And Adrian, still with his "I'm the handsomest in the world" attitude. Halfway through the auction, the host suddenly announced, "The next item, donated by Miss Celia of Moo Group, is the engagement ring Mr. Adrian gave her last year." The room erupted in uproar. Adrian suddenly stood up. "Celia. What do you mean?" I elegantly raised my bid card, starting bid, 1 yuan. Nathan lazily raised his, 1 million. Adrian's face turned ashen. "You. 2 million. I smiled and bid higher. 3 million. Nathan followed. 5 million. 10 million. Ultimately, the ring was auctioned to Nathan for 10 million. The host asked excitedly, "Why did Nathan bid for this ring?" Nathan toyed with the ring, the corner of his lips curving, "Because." He suddenly knelt on one knee, in the shocked gazes of the room, presenting the ring to me. "Miss Celia, will you marry me?" I raised an eyebrow. This seems to be someone else's engagement ring? Not important. His eyes deep. "What's important is, from now on, you'll only be mine." The room screamed. In the corner, Adrian's face was ashen. Vivian clenched her palm tightly, nails digging into the flesh. After the banquet, in the parking lot, Adrian blocked me. "Celia. Are you crazy? What kind of person is Nathan? He's played with more women than you've seen." I chuckled lightly. "So? He won't marry you at all." Adrian excitedly grabbed my shoulders. "Only I truly love you. Let go." A cold voice came from behind. Nathan appeared at some point, gripping Adrian's wrist with force, almost crushing the bone. Adrian's face paled in pain. "Nathan. Touch her again." Nathan's voice cold as ice, "and I'll make sure you can't survive in the capital." With that, he wrapped his arm around me and turned to leave. Behind us came Adrian's hysterical shout. "Celia. You'll regret it. You don't love him at all. You still love me." I waved without looking back. "Suggest seeing a neurologist, young Master Adrian." Inside the black Maybach, Nathan pressed me onto the seat. "Satisfied?" Nathan was very handsome today. He lowered his head to bite my lip. "So, ready to fulfill the promise?" "What promise?" "Tonight." His fingers slid under my skirt. "Don't think about sleeping." The windows gradually fogged up. Ever since Nathan proposed to me publicly, Vivian was like a venomous snake with its tail stepped on, lurking in the dark waiting for an opportunity. And Adrian, that idiot, actually posted on Facebook, "Some people, to anger me, even treat marriage as a joke. Celia, you're ruthless." Accompanied by a melancholic side profile of him looking up at the sky at 45 degrees. I almost sprayed my breakfast coffee. 3 days later, at the private racetrack. I wore black riding attire, long hair tied high, stroking my beloved horse Thunder's mane. Nathan stood aside, in a white shirt and black breeches, his broad shoulders and narrow waist outlined sexily by the sunlight. Vivian has been very quiet lately. He handed me a glass of iced water, his eyes slightly dark. "Something's off." I chuckled lightly. "She's holding back for a big move." As soon as the words fell, there was a commotion at the racetrack entrance. Vivian wore pure white riding attire, black long straight hair over her shoulders, looking like a pure female lead from an idol drama. Behind her, Adrian led a horse, looking at her with a doting face. Tisk, lingering ghosts. I mounted the horse, more annoying than flies. Nathan pinched my calf. "Don't play too rough." "Don't worry." I leaned down to peck his lips lightly. "Leave some breath for you to clean up." With that, I clipped the horse's belly, and Thunder shot out like an arrow. On the racetrack, Vivian deliberately rode her horse close to me, her voice weak. "Miss Celia, what a coincidence." I ignored her and urged the horse to speed up. But she pursued relentlessly. "Miss Celia, your marriage with Nathan, is it real?" I suddenly pulled the reins, the horse's front hooves rearing high, almost colliding with her horse. Vivian screamed in fright, her face pale. "Vivian," I looked down at her, "follow me again, and next time it won't be just a scare." She bit her lip, her eyes instantly red. "Miss Celia, you misunderstood. I just..." Just what? I sneered. Want to record a video again? Or plan to accidentally knock me off the horse? Vivian's face changed, clearly not expecting me to see through her intentions. At that moment, Adrian rode over. Celia. What are you doing bullying Vivian? I rolled my eyes. If you don't use your eyes, you can donate them. You, Adrian was so angry his face turned ashen. Celia, I know you're jealous of Vivian, but you can't be so vicious. I almost laughed. Me? Jealous of her? Aren't you? Adrian puffed out his chest. To get my attention, you even acted with Nathan, and now targeting Vivian. He became more confident. Admit it, you still love me. I looked at him quietly for 3 seconds, suddenly urging the horse closer, whispering in his ear, Adrian, do you know what you and Vivian match best in? What? The same stupidity. With that, I whipped the horse and left, Adrian's furious roar echoing behind. In the VIP lounge. I just came out from showering and saw Nathan leaning on the sofa, toying with a mini camera. Found in Vivian's saddlebag. His tone dangerous. She planned to film you falling off the horse. I walked over drying my hair. Just this level of tricks? Nathan pulled me into his arms, my wet robe sticking to his shirt. How to handle it? I straddled his lap, fingertips tracing his Adam's apple. Turn the tables on her? He flipped me over, pressing me on the sofa. As you wish. An hour later, a sudden accident. Vivian's horse was startled, throwing her into the mud pit. The so-called pure jade girl Little White Lotus was now covered in mud, half her false eyelashes fallen, crying with ruined makeup. Even more exciting, her saddlebag burst, contents scattering, mini camera, my itinerary, a packet of white powder, later tested as laxative. Adrian stood aside, face ugly. Vivian, these are. Vivian panicked. No, not mine. Someone framed me. She suddenly pointed at me screaming, it's Celia. It must be her. I crossed my arms, looking innocent. Miss Vivian, do you mean I knew in advance you'd bring these things to the racetrack, so I specially arranged this play? The onlooking socialite scoffed. Vivian, Zhou family heiress Joanne mocked, even framing needs basic logic, right? Vivian's face ashen, suddenly lunged at Adrian. Adrian. Believe me. I really. Adrian subconsciously stepped back, eyes complex. Vivian, you. At that moment, Nathan wrapped his arm around my waist and turned. Let's go, seeing dirty things too much hurts the eyes. Inside the black Maybach. Nathan tugged off his tie, eyes dark. That packet of powder was aimed at you. I leaned on his shoulder. Guessed it. She's courting death. His fingers stroked my neck, voice terribly gentle. I tilted my head to kiss him. No rush, the good show is just starting. The car window slowly rose the room. 3 days later, Vivian's dirt suddenly exploded online. Someone anonymously posted, exposing the true face of pure jade girl Vivian, with lots of evidence, chat records of her dating 3 rich second generations simultaneously. Pre-plastic surgery photos, single eyelids, flat nose bridge, completely different from now. Ex-boyfriend's accusation video, saying she scammed all his savings and disappeared. The most fatal was a recording with her bestie, Adrian? Just an idiot. Once I ruin Celia and get the Sue family's assets, I'll dump him. After seeing the news, Adrian rushed to Vivian's apartment, slapping her on the street. Bitch. This scene was captured by paparazzi, instantly trending. Late at night, on Nathan's private island. I stepped barefoot on the beach, looking at Adrian's latest post on my phone, betrayed by the most trusted person, only then knowing who is true love. Celia, I was wrong, come back okay? Nathan hugged me from behind, kissing. Seems the lesson isn't enough. After Vivian's dirt exploded, Adrian completely collapsed. He posted a 3,000-word repentance essay on Facebook, tearfully recounting his tragic deception by Vivian, ending, Celia, only you are my true love. I screenshot and sent to the socialite group, captioned, suggest crowdfunding for his neurology appointment. The group was instantly flooded with ha ha ha. 3 days later, in front of Moo Group building. I just stepped out the door and was stunned by the sight. Adrian in wrinkled suit, holding a wilted bouquet of roses, standing in a huge heart made of candles. Even more absurd, a banner behind, "Celia, I was wrong, please come back." The security captain looked troubled. "Celia, we've chased him 3 times, he says if we chase again, he'll report us for infringing his personal freedom." I rubbed my temples. "Call the police." 10 minutes later, sirens echoed through the street. When Adrian was pinned to the ground, he was still roaring, "Celia, I know you still love me. You're just too embarrassed to admit it." I stood on the steps, looking down at him. "Adrian, do you know what you look like now?" He struggled to look up. "What?" "A stray dog." With that, I turned towards the black Maybach already waiting by the roadside. As the door opened, Nathan's slender fingers extended, naturally taking my hand. Adrian's eyes bulged. "Nathan, you stole my woman." Nathan didn't turn back, just faintly said to the police, "This person's mental state isn't normal, suggest sending to hospital." A month later, the Sue family's bankruptcy made finance headlines. It said Adrian's father embezzled funds for gambling, owing huge debts. And Adrian himself, he's now renting a basement in the southern slums. Assistant Alice handed me a file. "Vivian is still with him." I raised an eyebrow. "She didn't run?" "She ran." Assistant Alice held back laughter, but Adrian caught her back. "He says Vivian caused him to lose everything, must take responsibility to the end." I closed the file. Truly touching love. Half a year later, in a cheap rental. "Can you fucking cook?" Adrian kicked over a plastic stool, "So salty it's deadly." "Trying to choke me?" Vivian shrank in the corner, face with slap marks. I followed the recipe." "Recipe my ass." Adrian grabbed the plate and smashed it on the ground. "I was really blind back then, giving up Celia for a bitch like you." Vivian suddenly screamed, "You think Celia would still want you? She's very loving with Nathan now. Didn't you see last week's magazine? They're vacationing in the Maldives." Adrian raged, grabbing her hair and slamming against the wall. "Shut up, bitch. It's all your fault." Neighbors cursed from next door. "What the hell are you arguing about in the middle of the night? Argue again and I'll call the police." The two then quieted. 3 more months passed. Vivian finally couldn't stand this life, secretly contacting a rich businessman she knew before. The businessman was over 50, bald with a beer belly, but willing to spend. Vivian used all her skills in bed, finally coaxing him to agree to keep her. But she never expected that on the day she packed her luggage to run, Adrian came back early. "Trying to run?" Adrian blocked the door, eyes sinister. "Ruined me like this and think you can run?" Vivian's legs weakened, kneeling on the ground. "Adrian, let me explain." Adrian grabbed her hair, grinning ferociously. "Explain what? How you spread your legs for an old man?" He took out his phone, playing a recording of Vivian and the businessman in the hotel. Vivian's face ashen. You followed me?" "Followed?" Adrian sneered. "I fucking recorded video too." He dragged Vivian into the room. "Since you like selling so much, I'll let you sell enough." A month later, at a low-end club. "Sister Coco, this is our new young master," called Adrian. The madam introduced fawningly, though a bit older. "His skills are good." The rich woman scrutinized Adrian. "Looks okay, but eyes too fierce." Adrian endured the humiliation, forcing a smile. "Sister Coco, I'll serve you well." The rich woman suddenly frowned. "Wait, aren't you that Sue family's young master?" Adrian's face changed drastically. The rich woman suddenly laughed. "Ha ha ha, karma. Back then your mom mocked me as nouveau riche, now her son comes to lick my feet." She took out bills and slapped them on Adrian's face. "Come, bark like a dog." Adrian clenched his fist, but loosened upon seeing the money. Woof. At the same time, on a private island in the Maldives, I lay in Nathan's arms, scrolling to news of Adrian working as a gigolo in a club, unable to hold back laughter. Nathan snatched my phone, flipping over to press me down. "Looking at other men?" He bit my lip. "You can only look at me." Waves gently lapped the beach, moonlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling window, casting entangled shadows on the wall.